My name is Lily Zhang, and I'm watching my Uncle Frank change the locks on Golden Dragon, our family restaurant, while shouting about how I'll never set foot in his place again. What he doesn't know is that tomorrow morning, he'll be attending a mandatory meeting with the shopping mall's new owner, me. 5 years of careful planning are about to pay off, and I can't wait to see his face when he realizes who really holds the power here. Let me take you back to where this all began. Golden Dragon wasn't just a restaurant. It was my father's dream. David Zhang immigrated to America with nothing but determination and his grandmother's recipes. He worked 18-hour days as a dishwasher, saved every penny, and finally opened Golden Dragon in the Riverside Mall 25 years ago. I grew up in that restaurant, learning every aspect of the business from the ground up. While other kids played after school, I was helping prep vegetables, learning recipes, and watching Dad transform simple ingredients into magic. The secret isn't just in the recipes, Dad would say as we worked side by side. It's in the love you put into every dish. When I was 12, Dad brought his younger brother Frank over from China to help with the growing business. Frank seemed grateful at first, eager to learn and contribute to the restaurant's success. "Your father is so generous," he would tell me. "I'll never forget what he's done for me." Those words would turn out to be another lie. Dad made Frank a partner in the business after 5 years, giving him a 25% stake in recognition of his hard work. What Dad didn't realize was that his little brother had bigger ambitions. I was away at college, studying business management with dreams of expanding Golden Dragon into a restaurant empire, when Dad had his first stroke. Frank immediately stepped in to help manage the restaurant while Dad recovered. "Don't worry about anything," he told Dad. "Just focus on getting better. I'll take care of everything." But Frank's idea of taking care meant gradually pushing Dad out of decisions, changing suppliers to cheaper alternatives, and cutting corners on the quality that had made Golden Dragon famous. Dad tried to object, but Frank always had an excuse. "Times are changing," he would say. "We need to adapt to survive." When Dad had a second stroke 2 years later, Frank made his real move. He somehow convinced Dad to sign over another 30% of the business, temporarily, while he recovered. Combined with his original 25%, this gave Frank controlling interest in the restaurant. I was in my final year of college when this happened. I rushed home to find Dad in the hospital and Frank already redecorating his office. "The restaurant needs strong leadership," Frank told me smugly. "Your father isn't capable anymore, and you're too young and inexperienced." But I wasn't as naive as he thought. My business degree hadn't just taught me about management. It had taught me about corporate strategy and long-term planning. While Frank was focused on his immediate power grab, I was already thinking 5 steps ahead. First, I got copies of all the original business documents, lease agreements, and contracts. Then I started tracking every change Frank made, documenting every deviation from Dad's original recipes and quality standards. Most importantly, I began researching the Riverside Mall itself. The shopping center had been struggling for years, with declining foot traffic and increasing vacancies. The current owners were looking to sell, but finding no interested buyers. That's when I put my plan into motion. While working as a waitress at Golden Dragon, the only job Frank would allow me to have in Dad's restaurant, I was secretly building connections with other business owners in the mall. I learned about their struggles, their lease terms, their hopes for the future. I also started investing every penny I could save. I lived in a tiny studio apartment, drove a beat-up car, and put every bonus and tip into carefully chosen investments. Thanks to some smart choices in tech stocks and cryptocurrency, my modest savings began to grow exponentially. Frank was too busy playing big-shot restaurant owner to notice what I was doing. He hired his son Peter as manager despite his complete lack of experience, gave his daughter Lisa a fake consultant position, and generally treated Golden Dragon as his personal ATM. The food quality declined, but the restaurant's reputation and loyal customer base kept it profitable for a while. Then Frank decided to modernize the menu, removing many of Dad's traditional dishes in favor of westernized versions he thought would be more popular. "No one wants authentic Chinese food anymore," he declared, ignoring decades of success that proved otherwise. "We need to appeal to American tastes." Dad, watching from his wheelchair during his weekly visits, grew more and more depressed as he saw his life's work being dismantled. The final straw came when Frank removed Dad's award-winning Peking duck from the menu because it was too complicated and expensive to prepare. That's when I decided it was time to accelerate my plan. Working through a series of shell companies, I began buying up the mall's debt. The current owners, desperate to unload the struggling property, didn't look too closely at who was behind the purchases. It took 5 years, but I finally managed to acquire controlling interest in the entire Riverside Mall. The purchase was completed yesterday, though the news won't be officially announced until tomorrow's mandatory meeting with all tenants. Which brings us to today, watching Frank change the locks after our latest argument about his mismanagement of the restaurant. "You're just like your father, stuck in the past," he had shouted. "This is my restaurant now, and I'm tired of you questioning my decisions." When I pointed out that Dad still owned 45% of the business, Frank laughed. "Check again," he sneered, showing me new paperwork. "Dad signed over another 15% last week. I own 70% now. You and your father are out." What he didn't know was that Dad had warned me about this latest power play. We had been waiting for it, knowing it would be the perfect catalyst for what was coming next. The next morning, Frank arrives at the mandatory tenant meeting, strutting in like he owns the place. His kids, Peter and Lisa, trail behind him, already complaining about having to be there so early. The meeting room is packed with store owners, all curious about the mall's new ownership. Frank takes a seat in the front row, probably hoping to intimidate the new landlord with his self-important attitude. I wait until everyone is seated before walking to the podium. The look on Frank's face when he recognizes me is priceless. "Good morning," I begin. "I'm Lily Zhang, the new owner of Riverside Mall. Let's talk about some changes that will be happening." Frank jumps to his feet. "This is a joke, right? You can't own the mall." I smile, sliding a document across the table to him. "Actually, I can and I do. And according to the terms of your lease, which I've reviewed very carefully, you're in violation of several key provisions." The color drains from his face as he reads the lease violations I've documented. Unauthorized menu changes, health code infractions, failure to maintain quality standards specified in the original agreement. "These are minor issues," he stutters. "You can't do anything about this." "Actually, I can. The lease gives the landlord full discretion to terminate the agreement if the tenant fails to maintain the standards and character of their business. Golden Dragon was leased as a premium, authentic Chinese restaurant. You've turned it into a cheap takeout joint." The other business owners watch with fascination as Frank's arrogance crumbles. His kids, sensing disaster, start edging toward the door. "You have 2 choices," I continue. "Option 1. You can surrender your shares in the restaurant back to Dad and step down as manager immediately. I'll let you maintain your original 25% ownership as a silent partner, and we'll forget about the lease violations." "And option 2? Frank asks, his voice barely a whisper. "Option 2. I evict Golden Dragon for lease violations, which will trigger the lease's financial penalties. Given the documented violations over the past 3 years, you're looking at around $500,000 in fines. Oh, and I'll still take the restaurant back. The lease has a clear clause about maintaining the original ownership structure." Frank looks around desperately, but finds no sympathy. Many of the other business owners have suffered from his arrogant behavior over the years. "You can't prove Dad wasn't competent when he signed those ownership transfers," he tries one last time. I pull out another document. "You mean these medical records showing Dad was on heavy pain medication when you brought him those papers? Or maybe you'd like to explain to the police how you got him to sign documents while he was in the hospital recovering from a stroke." Frank slumps in his chair, defeated. His carefully constructed empire crumbling in minutes. "You planned this all along," he realizes. "While I was busy playing big shot with the restaurant, you were becoming the actual boss." "I learned from Dad that success isn't about quick grabs for power," I tell him. "It's about patience, hard work, and playing the long game." The transformation of Golden Dragon begins immediately. Frank signs the papers returning control to Dad, keeping only his original 25% ownership. His kids are fired from their do-nothing jobs. All of Dad's original recipes are restored to the menu. The mall undergoes changes too. I implement improvements that benefit all the tenants: better security, renovated common areas, marketing support. The other business owners, impressed by how I handled Frank, become strong allies in revitalizing the shopping center. Within 6 months, Golden Dragon is back to its former glory. Dad's award-winning Peking duck returns to the menu, drawing customers from across the state. The restaurant's reputation for authentic, high-quality Chinese cuisine is restored. Frank still comes to the restaurant occasionally, now forced to make reservations like any other customer. He sits quietly in the corner, watching as I run the business he tried to steal, in the mall I now own. Epilogue. 5 years have passed since that dramatic meeting. Riverside Mall has become one of the most successful shopping centers in the region, known for its unique mix of family-owned businesses and authentic ethnic restaurants. Golden Dragon has expanded, opening 2 new locations that maintain Dad's high standards. I run the business while Dad enjoys semi-retirement, though he still comes in regularly to make sure we're following his recipes exactly. Frank's kids actually turned out okay once they were forced to work real jobs. Peter discovered a talent for marketing and now runs a successful advertising agency. Lisa went back to school and became an accountant. They both apologized for their part in Frank's schemes. Frank himself has changed too, humbled by the experience. He still owns his 25% of Golden Dragon, but has no say in its operation. Sometimes I catch him watching me run the restaurant with a mix of respect and regret, finally understanding what real business acumen looks like. Last week, a young entrepreneur approached me about opening a restaurant in the mall. As we discussed terms, I shared some advice Dad had given me long ago. Success isn't just about making money, I told her. It's about building something that lasts, something your children can be proud of. She got it immediately, just as I had all those years ago in Dad's kitchen. The mall's main entrance now features a wall of photos showing the history of its businesses. In the center is a picture of Dad on Golden Dragon's opening day, standing proudly in front of his new restaurant. Next to it is a more recent photo, me and Dad together after the opening of our 3rd location. Frank happened to be there that day, standing in the background, a witness to the success he could have been part of if he hadn't let greed cloud his judgment. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about building something so successful that they have to live with the knowledge that they could have been part of it if they'd chosen a different path. Dad always said the secret to great cooking was patience. Turns out it's also the secret to great revenge. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.